first attempt.
Calamite is a great example of why this build really isn't that good. It's highly resistant to our magic, and it moves way too much for us to actually be able to make use of our attack speed. It's still just Calamite, so it's not a crazy hard fight or anything, just be prepared to be fighting for a long.
Look at this loser's pathetic damage. Highest DPS? What's this then? Okay, so Solar Pellets made a video on the highest possible DPS you can get in DS1. In the video, he used the Painting Guardian Sword plus 15 with a Dark Moon Blade. Now sure, he gets a decent amount of damage, but it's not what you'd imagine when someone says, highest DPS. I don't remember any rule in the run saying that you can't use additional buffs like Power Within, so I'm just gonna see how hard DS1 actually is with the actual highest DPS. Using Power Within, RTSR, Dark Moon Blade, and plus 15. The first half of Solar's run and my run is just standard Dark Souls 1 gameplay without the Painted Guardian Sword because they don't have mods. A thing I will mention though is that Solar Pellets allows himself to grab things without grinding them, which I can understand because I hate farming in any game. He dupes his souvenir of reprisals to give to Gwendolyn so Dark Moon Blade can have the highest buff possible, which I also did. I start by creating my character and of course, no hate to him. I just wanted to do this myself with what I believe to be the highest melee DPS. I start with the Thief for the Master Key, and I got the Pendant so I could trade it to Snuggly for a souvenir of reprisal. The Asylum is cleared, and I get the Red Tearstone Ring. Shit goes as per usual, except that I fight the Bell Gargoyles with a Summon. I don't normally do this, but I'm just trying to get to Anor Londo as quickly as possible. However, I might as well have not had any summon at all because my summon was being pretty special needs and useless. Also, tip for this boss, if you don't lock on and just strafe right, then either of them won't hit you most of the time. Like you can literally see in this clip, you can't do anything if you just have good positioning. I clear Blighttown and pick up Power Within and beat Quaylite with my astronomically high damage. Just look at that. On my way back from Blighttown, I hit the fattest clutch in Souls history. Seriously, in this clip, I had Toxic and Poison while running from Blighttown to Valia Drakes to Firelink. I had no Estus and I just barely made it out alive, without having to run all that way back. Blighttown is great, but those Poison Blow Dart shooters are the worst part of it all. I should mention here now that I put all my stats into Dexterity first to max out the damage as soon as possible. Afterward, I enter Anor Londo and brace for some of the worst farming in my life. The Painted Guardian Sword drop rate is literally 2%, and without tons of humanity to boost my drop rates, I was ready for a rough time. I also didn't pick up the ring from Sense Fortress that increases your item drop rate, and I really didn't want to go back there. On top of the fact that you mainly fight them on the rafters and I wanted to get the weapon as soon as possible, this was not looking good for me. But on my first attempt, and the third Painting Guardian, oh, he dropped it. How nice of him. Turns out the game was being very nice today as I got 2 more Painted Guardian Swords on the first run. While technically you can get a Dark Moon Blade and upgrade your weapon to plus 10 before ONS, that'd be a tedious grind, so I just decided to fight them with the regular plus 5 Painted Guardian Sword I had. These guys used to be S tier for me on my first playthrough and a couple ones after that. But now after Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3, and all the other Souls games, I can kinda say these guys suck. I think Godskin Duo might be better than this fight unironically. Ornstein is too annoying to catch in phase 1. He loves to backstep, sidestep, and then just do that like 4 times in a row so I cannot catch him. On top of his really buggy attacks, I just opted for Smo phase 1 and Ornstein phase 2. I don't know if this was intended, but with good positioning, Super Ornstein literally couldn't do anything to me, and I just kept smacking. I traded my souvenir of reprisal with Snuggly, and with some legal methods, I had magically attained 99 souvenirs of reprisals. Wow, the best Souls game. I'm using a lot of glitches in this run because I don't feel like grinding my life out hard on enemies with a 6% drop rate. Just to do all of that and get 60 of them is insane. To do this without any mods, you need to execute the item dupe glitch that I will show here. I bought 615 giant armor pieces to execute it. I wanted to avoid soul duping in this run for levels, so I didn't steamroll the game. So I tried to keep my stats to a proper level, but it's a little hard to estimate when you have millions of souls and you're slightly underpowered. I turned in all 60 to Gwendolyn to get my Dark Moon Blade, and getting the Covenant to maximum rank for the highest possible damage buff I could get. Upon getting the Dark Moon Blade, I noticed that I didn't have the Dark Moon Talisman, which is weird because you usually get both at the same time. What I found out was that my inventory was at its limit and that the Dark Moon Talisman was on the ground and I couldn't pick it up. Dark Souls 1 doesn't have a meter that indicates the maximum equip load, so I just had to guess here. What I had to do was drop a bunch of giant armors ranging from 1 to 40-ish and hope that at some point I would have enough inventory space so that I could pick it up. The reason why I couldn't drop more than 40 is because then the Dark Moon Talisman despawns and I'd lose the best talisman for maxing out the damage. Even if I did drop 40, there was a chance that I had already been over the item limit for all the other items in my inventory, so that picking it up would have literally been impossible from the start. I was really nervous during this, but I measured it right luckily and got my talisman. Whew. The hardest part of the run is over, and I mean that. Now, with the Holy Trio perfected, Red Tearstone Ring, Power Within, and Dark Moon Blade at max rank, I could successfully annihilate all future bosses in the game. The only thing I was missing was a very large ember from New Londo, which would get my weapon to plus 15. To test the damage on this thing, I first went up to the stupid Titanite demon who I really dislike fighting. I stacked both of the buffs without RTSR because I was afraid of his bad hitboxes and odd roll timings throwing me off and I would die. Anyways, I went ham on him like a Lunchaborn. Woo! That damage is pretty good. What is that, like 600 a swing? But we can do better. The next boss to fall to my blade was the Moonlight Butterfly. I had tried to activate Red Tearstone Ring / RTSR while fighting it, but I got so close to death so many times for a boss that I just felt like just never would come down. So I just settled for Power Within and Dark Moon Blade. As expected, this boss gets absolutely ripped. I got the very large ember from New Londo and duped the Titanite chunks I needed to get my weapon at plus 14, instead of farming them because, as you know, I hate farming. All that was left was to head back to the asylum to get my Titanite slab by killing the Stray Demon, and this time, I had perfected a strategy. I ripped its asshole apart. 1000 a swing on top of bleed with how fast I swing? Come on, I wasn't even at max power. I died by Power Within because I wasn't paying attention to my HP, because it was fine, because I got the Titanite slab. Until I didn't. I found out that you could only get the Titanite slab off drop kill when you kill the boss. And going back to the arena didn't solve anything as nothing was there. So I didn't get the Titanite slab to max out my damage. The fastest way to get another slab was to enter the DLC and go into Calamit's arena to get one. So the next 3 bosses I couldn't have my damage maxed out, but it was fine because it was pretty close anyway. To axe the DLC, we need to kill Seath, who was particularly annoying to deal with. While getting ready for my attempt against him, I get one shot, which is fair, but he curses me after death! I am already dead, man! How are you cursing me? With half HP, this makes the margin for error even smaller as anything will one-shot me. Not even at the boss run back just fucking kept killing me. Which makes the run really annoying to do. Before I could at least take one hit with the constant Power Within, but on top of the curse, it just made me feel like I was doing a no-hit run against most of the enemies and bosses up to this point. I uncursed myself and increased my HP to reduce the frustration of dying 15 times before getting to the boss. I made him break his own crystal and unleashed all my frustration at this albino wannabe-ass dragon, and that HP bar really made my day. I didn't even care that I died at the end because I literally did more than 6,000 damage to his HP bar, which I think was the most out of anything on this run. One of the worst bosses in the series. Afterward, I entered the DLC and fought Sanctuary Guardian. Setting up all the buffs properly for this boss is a big aid in the past because it was so fast with very few guaranteed openings. Balancing all 3 at the same time took a while, but eventually I got him and he gets 3-tapped. Afterward, we have my boy Artorias. If you stand near the fog gate after you enter his boss arena, you can trigger this jump attack with crazy end lag on it, which is just free damage, and he gets wiped. I get the crest key and get prepared for Calamite, and also get my weapon at plus 15. Also, always give Artorias' soul to Kieran, because it's just the right and sweet thing to do. I fought Calamite expecting a really slow kill with all of his weird timings and parts of the fight forcing you to reposition, but no! Calamite was the best kill of the entire run! I made it look easy in the clip, but he did all of his most obvious openings and just let me rush him down. I was expecting him to be the hardest or second hardest boss of the run, but no, he's actually probably around the middle. Manus was the hardest boss of the run because he constantly moves around and I had to play by his rules. He has crazy positioning requirements, which means I couldn't rush him down and the bleed just didn't work on him. I also really don't like his fight and I had to relearn most of it to memorize how to dodge the majority of his attacks. With all the DLC bosses and most of the hard stuff out of the way, the game was really easy, so I'll just give you some lightning rounds. I didn't use the cheese method on Ceaseless, but he goes down pretty quickly. Flamin' Hot Cheetos gets his cheeks booty blasted even without RTSR. I was really scared I would die by Centipede Demon's grab, but since it does no damage, I survive, and afterward he gets exterminated with the small HP pool. The stupid Titanite demon I hate fighting on a tiny bridge dies quickly and is easily the best kill of the run. I have never actually beaten him before, so this is my opportunity. Bed of Chaos is Bed of Chaos. Pinmu was unironically one of the hardest bosses of the run, because getting myself to RTSR range with Power Within on a boss that ganks and spams ranged attacks that I can't see in my FOV almost killed me. Luckily, I never died and he basically gets 2-tapped. One of the hardest attempts of the run though. I didn't kill Nito as fast as I had liked because I had gotten Toxic, which basically took off RTSR as an option. That stacked with Power Within would have likely killed me, probably faster than I could kill Nito. Sif has an annoying attack that comes out really quick when you start the fight, but still gets destroyed, and I kinda feel bad. I tried my best to make 4 kings 1 king, but I just didn't have the DPS even with 40 stamina. I'll take 2 kings however. I didn't use RTSR for the second king as I used it for the first one, but it still didn't even make 1 king, so yeah. I didn't do Priscilla because I kinda like her. Gwendolyn is required for the run, and if I killed him, it would disable the Dark Moon Blade that I had. And I hate Gaping Dragon and he's not required. I didn't use Dragon Torso Stone because while it would significantly improve my damage, the startup time and the amount of time it buffs you, I don't deem effective. Like, what am I gonna do with, like, what, 5 seconds of buff? Sure, most of these bosses die in 5 seconds, but the given openings for them is already taken up by the shout you have at the beginning. So while technically you could say this isn't the highest DPS because the Dragon Torso Stone exists, it wouldn't make any of these kills much faster, and for the high tier bosses like Manus, it's not really gonna be effective at all. I didn't activate RTSR for this fight because I forgot to, but it didn't seem like it would matter that much because Gwyn died within a matter of 10 seconds. So, how hard is Dark Souls 1 with the real highest DPS? Not very hard. The first half is pretty casual while the back half is literally free. Everything dies in 10 hits or less on top of the bleed. Do I recommend the run? I mean, if you like feeling OP for a good 5 seconds, then yeah, go ahead. Because you'll probably die many times attempting to set up. Anyways, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and comment what you want to see next. See ya.